We are now talking to Rotoball Fantasy Baseball second DFS writer, John Anderson. What's going on, John?
Hey there. Kind of out of nowhere. Never heard of you guys, but what's up? Looks like you got a nice show here. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thank you, John, for blowing our heads up. Well, you just came out of nowhere, but we really appreciate it.
Not a great way to start it, I guess. Yes,
we're very happy to have you on, man. We really appreciate you joining us. I'm sure you're a very busy guy. What's that, a jumping? What do you have there?
Yeah, that's
trampoline?
That's my workout between segments here.
Oh, there you go. I mean, I don't have a workout. I mean, if you want me to do some handstands during the show, I could do that for you. But obviously,
I have kids, as you can tell, a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. Yep.
That's good, man. Good for you, and really happy. Like I said, we're really excited to get you on. So, John, so far, what are your thoughts so far early this season when it comes to baseball? Obviously, we're here in New York, the Yankees and the Mets. The Yankees 32-13. The Mets are playing great baseball. What has stood out to you so far early this season?
All you baseball guys I talk to are in New York. It's just everybody in New York online talking about baseball into a microphone. That's wild. It's been interesting.
We're the better ones. We're the better ones.
I suppose the louder ones. You'd like to talk. I think the big story has been, at least in fantasy, but it's trickled out into just the normal game, is the different hitting environments, right? The lighter ball, and not lighter, but whatever they call it, the humidors. It's harder to hit a home run. Batting averages are way down. They're on the way up, but I mean, for a while we were hovering around like 232. And you remember back in the day when like 270 was about league average. Maybe it wasn't that high, but like a
Close.
270 hitter, 270 hitter, you'd be like, oh, he's okay. But now a 270 hitter is like not near the league leaders, but very good. And we've seen home run rates come down. We've seen the barrel, as we talk about in data analysis. Those just aren't going for homers nearly as often. So it's a pitcher's game right now. It'll be interesting to see if the humidors react to the warmer weather in the summer. And as I said, things are already on the way up, but that's been a pretty big storyline, and it has not affected your boy Aaron Judge, though. He's having a career season so far.
Money, 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 money. That's all I'm going to say about that.
So,
am I allowed to have a drink here?
Yes, you could drink.
Yeah, my favorite. That's my favorite beer you got there.
Right.
Yeah,
right. Speedy likes Pittsburgh. I do Pittsburgh originally. So
yes. Oh yeah, there you go. That works so perfectly. Love Yingling. So another factor that we've heard reports about different years tampering with the baseballs, with the league offices, switching it up, different baseball from year in and year out. So what is your thoughts on that? And do you think MLB will continue to end up doing that as long as Rob Manfred's the commissioner?
I don't know what the game is. They're trying. I guess they're seeing that less people are watching the game, which I think is just a consequence of the population just moving away from baseball. I mean, it's a slow game that you kind of have to pay a lot of attention to, and a long attention span, and 162 games. Like, it's hard to care about this stuff for the younger generation, and maybe that's always been true. Younger people always are less interested in that, but maybe it's accelerating now in the days of social media and the internet, where people they want to see the action and they want it to be over. They don't want to sit around for 3 hours. So the league's decision has been to try to speed up the games which is what I don't get. It seems like they're trying to get more singles, more doubles, more base runners, more steals. I don't know. To me, that's not all that fun. I was kind of liking the days when everybody would either strike out or hit a home run. I guess strikeouts aren't that fun because you see no action. You see the guy walk back to the dugout. So if they want to reduce that, then that's working. I think the home run is typically what you want to see, and you want to see the dudes chasing 60, 70 home runs. That's what saved the game in the late 90s, right? But that's the opposite direction is where we're going. So I don't know. But the ball, it's anybody's guess, I suppose, but I imagine that we see less homers hit this year than last year. Yeah.
As everybody knows, we are talking to Rotoballer, fantasy baseball second DFS writer John Anderson. We talk about some of these pitchers that have come out of the woodwork. Obviously, Nestor Cortes, I call him Nestor Nasty. He's been fantastic. 1.70 ERA. Is whip under 1 right now. It's in the zeros. You look at some of these guys, and then obviously Noah Syndergaard, what he's done with the Angels so far this year has been fantastic. When you look at these pitchers and really the growth of some of these young pitchers that have slowly they weren't such great pitchers their first 5 or 6 years, and all of a sudden they go back to those teams or they go somewhere else and really develop their skills. Are you surprised that some of these pitchers have developed the skills and become one of those dominant force pitchers in the MLB?
I'll always be surprised and always be very skeptical of someone like Nestor Cortes. He never got a ton of starts, though, right? I mean,
No.
I'm not super familiar with his
Last year, he
past,
started off in the second half. He played very well. He was coming from the bullpen. The Yankees started putting him as a starter. I think he started, I would say, about 12 or 13 games last year, or 11 games, somewhere around there. He pitched very well, and the Yankees obviously moved him to the rotation because they needed a left-handed pitcher.
So I'm a data guy. I have a data science background, and I will always tell you to just not overreact to a small sample of data. And Nestor Cortes has made 7-8 starts, and that is a small sample of data right there. So I'm going to default to what he's done in his career, not to say that you can't improve. Obviously, he has. He's obviously a much better pitcher, and I think he's more than good enough to stick in the rotation and have a good year. Do I expect anything like this first month and a half to continue? No. For fantasy purposes, which we're not necessarily talking about here, but it's a good example. Someone like that is typically a good idea to get rid of, to trade at the current value, because these things are typically small sample products rather than truly changes. But who knows? Maybe it's certainly possible that someone can change their game and work out and build up over the offseason and become a new player. But I will lean towards the skeptical side of guys like that.
So just from the general landscape of pitching, we've seen a lot of the award winners be kind of new guys recently, probably outside of Jacob deGrom. A lot of the guys come out of nowhere to win the Cy Youngs and become these all-star caliber pitchers. Do you think the young pitchers, the way they've been trained, doing a lot better, pitching a lot better, is going to be the new trend where you see these kind of year-to-year type things, like you were saying, small sample sizes?
I think a lot of that just has to do with it being tough to stay in the game for so long. So you just don't see a lot of guys like Scherzer pitching into their mid-30s. So the general most of the pitching population per se will be younger guys, just because it's hard to pitch into your 30s. But yeah, they're more equipped to, like, the data analytics side of baseball has blown up in the last 10 years, even 5 years. The StatCast system came out, which gives you all kinds of data. I mean, it just exploded the numbers and analytics you can take, and that's all pretty new. So someone that's younger, that's coming up with that kind of stuff, they might have an advantage, certainly, just because a veteran is going to be kind of set in their ways and a little bit more unwilling to make changes based on that. And that's fair enough. I mean, Justin Verlander doesn't have to change anything, right? And Max Scherzer, there's no reason for these guys to change anything. But maybe that leans a little bit in the advantage of the younger guys who are more adaptive and have more information right away to perfect their skill with.
John, you are a fantasy guy. So if you were playing fantasy baseball right now and you have your roster, and what has stood out to you as far as players? I mean, Mike Trout has had a good year. Aaron Judge has been good. Manny Machado has been good. But some of those players that you could have drafted in the 4th or 5th round that really has stood out so far early this season. And if you were a fantasy player that has an opportunity to trade one of these players, is there a particular player that right now, the way they're playing, would you trade for a specific player or in a specific, position to get your team moving in the right direction?
Well, it's kind of so yeah. You want to look for fantasy purposes here. You want to be skeptical, like I just said, of the guys that have no real good history, but have had a good first month. Typically, sometimes that means they just improved over the offseason and they're a new player. Most of the time, it's just baseball's a random game, and if you play 3 weeks of it, a lot of bad players will have good spans. When you're looking for the fantasy side of it, I would say look for hitters that aren't striking out a lot. Strikeout rate is a good stat to look at. The league average is 23%. So if you find a hitter under 20%, that's all systems go. And that is actually pretty likely to stay. You don't typically have lucky streaks in strikeout rate. Your strikeout rate will more or less stay the same over different samples of the year. Important this year to get these guys that are just the big guys, the Aaron Judges, the softer ball, the fact that it's harder to hit home runs. You want guys that are really hitting the ball because you're gonna have to hit it really hard to hit home runs. So look for these yoked dudes like yourself in the cutoff here to trust for the home runs. You need the big, strong guys because it's tougher now to get a ball out of the yard.
So one of the things that's been very polarizing in the fantasy community has been the closers, and there haven't been as many good ones this year. It's always been a skeptical position to draft. You got Taylor Rogers, who's done well, Josh Hader, Jordan Romano, and Edwin Diaz. But beyond that, not a lot of guys you could trust. So what is your strategy with that, with the closers that could change very often? And do you maybe value other types of relievers for fantasy as well, maybe because of these just inconsistencies?
It all depends on your league type. Most leagues need saves. You have to play that game. So a lot of the trend this year was to just go get one of the few solidified guys, like a Liam Hendricks, White Sox, or Romano from the Blue Jays. That's working out well. Iglesias from the Angels. The one guy that isn't working out is your boy Aroldis Chapman. That's a disaster. But for me, it depends on what kind of league you're playing in. If you play in a league where you can add a bunch of guys throughout the year, then I think it's best to just pick up the guys that have the job temporarily. That happens a ton now. You see most teams with multiple guys getting saved, so they're pretty easy to find. And that's just another consequence of all the data and analytics. You find you find teams using their best relievers when they need them in the seventh in a high leverage situation rather than waiting for the save situation. So that's made the saves thing a little bit tougher, but it's opened up some opportunity as well to get a lot of free, cheap saves in fantasy.
When you look at the American League East, John, and obviously it's probably the most dominant division, obviously with the Yankees, the Tampa Bay Rays, the Toronto Blue Jays, the Boston Red Sox, and even Baltimore, who has played just as well as the Boston Red Sox, and that's not saying much, but
They actually have a little bit of pitching.
They do. They're young and they're talented. They have some good young players in their farm system. What has stood out to you? Obviously, the Yankees being the number one seed right now and the best team in all of baseball, but what has stood out in this division that really, early in the season, that you wouldn't or you haven't expected in this division?
Blue Jays offense has been pretty lackluster. Last year, they led the league in home runs by a ton. I think they led the league in runs scored by a ton as well. But this year, it hasn't been the same. I mean, they lost Marcus Semien, who that looks pretty good for them because he is doing absolutely nothing in Texas. But other than that, they still have Springer and Vlad and Teoscar and all these guys. But let me pull up the team batting average for them right now. So they're hitting 232. And only slugging 379 with 45 homers. The 45 homers is a decent mark, but I mean the Yankees have 63, so they're way behind. So that's been pretty surprising. I don't really expect that to continue. Obviously, Semien hit 46 last year, and he's gone, so they haven't really replaced him. But their pitching is the thing they upgraded, so they kind of balance that out with Gossman and Jose Barrios, who maybe will get it together, and guys like that. But the Yankees are showing you that it's a good year to have the Judges and the Stantons and the Rizzos of the world that will hit home runs, and it's a good stadium to hit home runs because if you lead the league in home runs, you're probably making the playoffs, and the Yankees are looking like a pretty good bet to do that.
Teoscar Hernandez better wake up. He's on both my teams this year.
There you go. Yeah, he's been the main culprit, I guess. He was hurt.
He was hurt too, which didn't help.